At her wedding, my daughter placed my photo at the entrance with the caption, "No entry." A harsh strike from the only child who was meant to be my greatest pride. Instead of rejoicing, I turned and left, abandoning my visions of a joyful family. But 4 hours later, my phone lit up with 84 missed calls. Her disloyalty had spiraled into disorder. Before we proceed, please subscribe to the channel and comment below with the current time and your location. The sharp blue light cut through my cozy reading lamp like a knife. My phone vibrated fiercely against the leather armrest, disrupting the serene February evening I had built around myself. The newspaper rustled as I reached for the device, my reading glasses reflecting the intrusive glow. "Dad!" Emma's face burst onto the screen, her joy so vivid it seemed to throb through the digital display. "I have wonderful news. I'm engaged." My coffee cup paused midway to my lips. Behind her, I glimpsed what appeared to be a luxurious apartment. Granite countertops, tall windows showcasing Miami's sparkling skyline. "Sweetheart, that's—" I began. But she pushed her left hand toward the camera. The diamond captured every beam in her space, casting colorful sparks across her excited cheeks. "Look at this ring, Dad. Isn't it stunning?" Before I could reply fully, a man's face joined hers. Tall, defined jaw, impeccably groomed dark hair. His grin resembled one from a dental ad. "Mr. Ellis." His tone held that slick assurance I had grown wary of during my real estate career. "I'm Harrison Kingsley. I vow your daughter will be the happiest woman alive." "Dad, I'm thrilled for you. Tell me about Harrison." I managed, attempting to mirror their enthusiasm while examining this unfamiliar man who had won my daughter's affection. "He's a prosperous blockchain trader. Dad, he has such bold visions." Emma nearly jumped as she spoke. "Harrison's holdings include decentralized startups, digital art ventures. The market's been unstable recently." Harrison cut in smoothly, his hand moving to rest on Emma's shoulder. Something in the motion felt ownership rather than tenderness. "But I've spread investments across various fields: innovation, green power, some classic shares for balance." I observed how his gaze avoided mine via the camera. It shifted to something unseen, perhaps another screen, perhaps glancing at the clock. His pricey watch gleamed, but the way he angled his wrist appeared intentional, almost staged. "When's the wedding?" I inquired. "April 20th, Emma squealed. "I know it's quick, but Harrison secured this incredible spot with a sudden opening. The Grand Hyatt Miami. Can you believe it? 3 months? They plan to wed in 3 months? That's rather hasty," I commented cautiously. Harrison's smile tensed just slightly. "When it's right, sir. Plus, Emma deserves her dream ceremony, and this place won't hold." Through the display, I saw him idly spin a silver band on his little finger, a twitchy habit clashing with his refined appearance. His other hand stayed fixed on Emma's shoulder, thumb tracing tiny loops that seemed dominating rather than soothing. "Harrison's been so considerate with all of it." Emma beamed, pressing into him. "He's managing every supplier, the setups. I hardly need to fret over a thing. That ought to have pleased me." Instead, a chill formed in my gut. "Well, I look forward to meeting you in person, Harrison," I said, injecting warmth into my words. "Likewise, Mr. Ellis. I've heard plenty about you." After further lively talk on decorations and meals, they ended the call. I remained in my leather seat as shadows reclaimed the room, the phone's light dimming to darkness in my grasp. The newspaper rested abandoned on the floor, and my coffee had cooled. Something troubled me about Harrison, though I couldn't pinpoint it. Perhaps it was how he steered the discussion while appearing respectful, or how his costly attire seemed subtly off, too fresh, too flawless, like a disguise instead of everyday wear. I gazed at my reflection in the blank screen, seeing my uncertainties grow in the dimness. 17 days of uneasy nights had gone by since that video conversation. When Harrison called, requesting a private man-to-man chat, I consented, driven by curiosity and a persistent urge to grasp what unsettled me about him. The cafe in Boston's upscale Back Bay was precisely the type Harrison would pick. Subtle opulence, stone tables, the kind of privacy that accompanies $60 mains. I spotted him in a secluded booth, appearing anxious despite his immaculately tailored gray suit. "Mr. Ellis, thank you for meeting." He rose to clasp my hand, his hold strong but faintly moist. "Please, have a seat. May I get you something coffee will do?" I examined his features as we faced each other. Up close, the suave allure felt more delicate, like costly laminate over inexpensive material. "How are the wedding plans progressing?" I asked. "Splendid. In fact, that's partly why I wish to talk with you." He toyed with his coffee mug, turning it exactly 90 degrees. "Can I confide something private in you?" The query lingered between us like a snare ready to snap. "Certainly," I replied, though my every sense warned against it. Harrison leaned in, dropping his voice to a secretive murmur. "My holdings are briefly locked due to economic shifts. Nothing major. A regulatory check on one of my digital funds should clear in 8 months." But he halted, releasing what sounded like a rehearsed breath. "Emma dreams of a storybook wedding, and I can't stand to let her down." I watched his eyes while he talked. They fixed on a spot just past my right shoulder, never connecting directly. "The location demands full payment in advance," he went on. "Blooms, food service, all of it. It's beyond what I can access now without huge hits on my restricted resources." "How much are you seeking?" "Harrison, 75,000 would handle it all. I'll repay every penny by year's close, I assure you." With added interest. Naturally. He drew from his coat what seemed like formal papers. "These display my holdings worth, over $3 million in value, just presently unavailable." The documents appeared authentic, packed with stamps and jargon I didn't grasp, but the ease with which he presented them, like a trickster unveiling a rigged card, made my skin prickle. "Mr. Ellis, I realize how this appears, but I adore your daughter above all else. I simply want to offer her the ideal start to our shared life." He was skilled, I admitted. The openness felt real, the proofs persuasive, and 75,000, though substantial, wouldn't ruin my savings for retirement. "All right." I found myself agreeing, but Emma must never learn of this. "Definitely. It would devastate her to believe I couldn't support her adequately." Relief swept his expression so swiftly, it nearly seemed sincere. "You can't imagine what this means, sir." I drafted the check with intentional slowness, my pen pausing over the signature. Harrison's gaze followed each stroke like a predator eyeing quarry. The instant I detached the check, he almost leaped to seize it, tucking it neatly into his billfold. "You won't rue this. Mr. Ellis, Emma will have the most exquisite wedding Miami has witnessed." He departed right after, mentioning pressing vendor discussions. I lingered alone in the posh cafe, observing my coffee chill, as well-off Bostonians discussed stock movements and holiday retreats around me. My phone weighed heavily in my pocket. I ought to contact Emma, probe more on Harrison's dealings, perform basic verification any sensible individual would before surrendering 75,000. Instead, I drained my coffee and returned home, bearing the burden of a secret that already seemed an error. 9 days had dragged on since that cafe encounter, each heavier than before. I drifted through my Philadelphia apartment like a specter in his own existence. The cordless phone always close at hand. Every area seemed to taunt me. The tidy kitchen where I scarcely ate. The sitting room where focus eluded me for books. The bedroom where rest arrived in pieces. Madeline's picture observed me from the bedside, her kind smile preserved from happier days. I lifted the silver frame, brushing my thumb over the glass. Madeline always said, "Truth matters more than ease," I murmured to her likeness. She would have known the path. Madeline never relied on glib speakers, never allowed appeal to override her gut feelings. When Emma was 18 and desired to date that lad with the bike, Madeline had run a check that would impress federal agents. But Madeline was departed, and I was choosing options that felt like violations of all she instilled in me about safeguarding our daughter. The phone hummed in my other palm. Emma's profile image beamed at me. She had inherited her mother's perceptive eyes, the same eyes now obscured by affection and faith in a man who might deceive on everything. I punched her number, disconnected before it rang, then redialed it once. "Dad, great timing. I just returned from the florist. How are the wedding arrangements going?" I aimed for casual, though my tone emerged tight. "Marvelous. Dad, Harrison is so meticulous with details. He's overseeing it all. The musicians, the shooter, even aligning with the hotel crew. I barely need to ponder anything but arriving in my gown." Each eager phrase twisted like a minor blade. Harrison controlled every facet of their event with her funds. My funds. Emma. I started, then paused. The vow to Harrison bound my words like restraints. "Are you certain you know Harrison deeply enough?" "Of course, Dad. Why question that?" Her tone edged defensive. I heard her shifting in her apartment, likely organizing bouquets or flipping through bridal publications. "Just fatherly concerns. You've known him mere months. 9 months, in fact. And when you encounter the perfect match, duration fades," she chuckled. But it rang forced. "You taught me to heed my instincts. Recall well. My instincts say Harrison is ideal for me. Ideal." The term resonated in my thoughts like an alarm. Nothing is ideal, particularly those who profess to be. "I'm sure you're correct, dear. I anticipate dancing with you at your wedding." After we disconnected, I sat at my kitchen table and retrieved the leather notebook Madeline had gifted me long ago. Most sheets stayed empty. I'd never been one for jotting ideas. Tonight differed. I needed to document this choice. This instant, when I favored Harrison's pledge over my shielding urges. March 12th, 2025. Gave Harrison $75,000 for wedding costs. Emma unaware. Something seems amiss. But I pledged. Madeline would declare I'm foolish. But occasionally being a fine father means trusting your daughter's picks, even if they frighten you. I shut the notebook and stowed it in the drawer. Outside my window, Philadelphia pulsed with night activity. Pairs strolling from meals, households bound for late films, the steady flow of regular folks in routine existences. For the first time in years, I coveted their straightforward issues. The wedding was 7 weeks distant. 7 weeks for Harrison to disprove my doubts, or for me to uncover how gravely I'd erred about the man set to wed my daughter. I switched off the kitchen light and went to bed, taking Madeline's picture along. If I erred, at least I wouldn't face it solo. 4 days had elapsed since I penned those lines in Madeline's notebook. Now I stood outside Persesa Miami's shrine to gourmet dining, peering through vast windows as Harrison and Emma chuckled over sparkling glasses. The morning flight from O'Hare had left me weary and bleary, but I'd showered and donned my finest gray suit, a charcoal Brooks Brothers that abruptly felt inexpensive beneath the venue's glittering lights. "Dad." Emma sprang toward me in a billowing sapphire gown that likely exceeded my monthly rent. Her betrothal ring snared every ray as she enveloped me in an embrace scented with lavish fragrance and bliss. Harrison stood gradually from their nook table, his actions measured and hunter-like. The outfit he sported, navy wool with faint stripes, resembled a fashion layout. My $75,000 had served well. "Mr. Ellis, delightful to see you once more." His grip lingered overly, his thumb pressing my knuckles with excess pressure. "Please sit," Harrison motioned to the seat opposite, yet arranged himself to claim the prime dining view. I took the initiative to select wine, a fine Chardonnay that complements their ocean fare superbly. Before I could answer, he beckoned the sommelier, embarking on an intricate talk of flavors and barrel maturing that made me feel an outsider in my daughter's world. "The offerings shift with seasons," Harrison persisted, neglecting to pass the bound menu, "but I suggest the sea bass, unless you favor something more conventional." The term conventional oozed disdain. "Dad's quite bold," Emma noted, extending to clasp my hand. "Recall when you sampled that fusion spot in Little Havana." "Mr. Ellis? Do you still rely on a ledger? How quaint." Harrison's smile held firm, but his eyes sparkled with spite. I sensed my jaw clench. Sometimes traditional methods excel. Of course. Though managing outlays must challenge without online finance." He reclined, one arm slung possessively over Emma's shoulders. "Emma, your father likely recalls when digital coins were mere cents. Don't you, sir?" "Harrison, perhaps shift topics." I strove to maintain evenness. "Naturally. Pardon me. I overlook that not all adjust swiftly to fresh truths." He pivoted to Emma with staged worry. "Darling, should we outline blockchain fundamentals? Or might that overwhelm?" Emma actually giggled, as if I were some elder requiring shelter from current ideas. The server arrived with our opening dish, a complex setup of oysters that Harrison analyzed with exact cuts while expounding economic swings to Emma. Every so often, he'd offer me a crumb. "You might appreciate this, Mr. Ellis," before plunging into terms meant to sideline me. "Harrison, you're so clever." Emma stared at him with utter devotion. "Dad, you're fortunate to gain such a son-in-law." When the bill came, Harrison staged a lavish display of his platinum visa, dismissing my offer to chip in with grandiose refusal. "Please, Mr. Ellis, my pleasure after all." His gaze locked mine with deliberate malice. "I can assuredly cover it." Outside, I entered a cab while Harrison aided Emma into his luxury electric car. Through the back glass, I viewed him kiss her brow with affectionate control, his mirth echoing across the night air like a triumph melody. My hands balled in my lap as the urban glows streaked by. Something was deeply awry with Harrison Kingsley. Rest was unattainable. I lay in my standard hotel bed until 12:30, reliving each sneer, each planned slight, each instance Harrison diminished me before my daughter. At last, I surrendered and shifted to the tight desk, still in my creased dinner shirt and slackened tie. The hotel's network code was affixed to the lampstand. I launched my laptop and eyed the search field, uncertain how to start. "Harrison Kingsley," I entered. The initial results displayed professional networks and tech forum nods, all aligning with his tale. Too aligned. I delved further, appending Miami to refine. Page 4 revealed variants, a company filing for Kingsley Tech Enterprises, submitted just 9 months prior. The location was a postal box service. I attempted Harrison Kingsley's scam. The display flickered, then loaded with legal records. Chicago County Court. Docket CV 2025-8912. Harrison Thomas Kingsley, accused in a civil action for fund embezzlement, false identity, and scheme fraud. Court proceeding in Chicago. Scheme fraud, I whispered to the vacant space. My fingers shook as I navigated pages of judicial files. The complainant was a lady named Rachel Monroe, age 32, who had provided Harrison $220,000 for presumed blockchain trades. The image depicted a lovely brunette with trusting gaze, eyes strikingly akin to Emma's. I queried Harrison Kingsley. Chicago casualties, additional suits surfaced. Sophia Carter, $120,000. Julia Walker, $300,000. Consistently the identical scheme. Young, accomplished ladies. Always identical vows of trade prospects. Always identical ruinous deficits. Harrison Kingsley charged with diverting $250,000, I recited from a report, my voice faltering. But the image collection chilled my veins. Harrison with Rachel at an apparent betrothal gathering. Harrison with Sophia at an intimate supper. Harrison with Julia, her left hand showcasing a gem ring matching Emma's. I devoted the following 5 hours to outputting all. Legal submissions, media pieces, sufferer accounts, authority logs. The hotel's print station labored as I erected a barrier of proof around my device. Each file unveiled fresh terrors. Harrison had employed at least 3 aliases: Kingsley, Mitchell, Richards. He focused on approaching women via romance platforms, forging detailed roles as thriving business owners. The betrothal stage endured precisely 9 months, sufficient to foster reliance and tap finances. By 6 a.m., mugs littered the surface and my shirt dangled open at the neck. The proof blanketed every area: photos of Harrison's prior sufferers, captures of bogus trade papers, narratives from shattered kin. My word, what is he inflicting on my daughter? The query drifted in the musty hotel atmosphere like haze. Outside, Miami stirred. Morning travelers fetching drinks, runners on paths, ordinary individuals in standard routines. While my reality fractured into illicit designs and shattered oaths, I sorted the files into folders. Each casualty assigned her own. Rachel's was bulkiest. She had battled Harrison legally for 3 years before yielding. Sophia had sought to alert others digitally until Harrison's attorneys muted her. Julia had vanished from online entirely. The concluding file nauseated me. A mental assessment from the Federal White-Collar Division. Harrison exhibited typical self-absorbed traits with antisocial leanings, displaying exceptional ability at leveraging family ties for monetary aims. Morning light seeped through the drapes as I arranged the proof by timeline. My phone indicated 7:47 a.m. Emma would soon prepare for her day, perhaps humming nuptial tunes while Harrison observed from their rest, scheming his next step. I grasped my phone with firm hands. The era of secrets had concluded. Mother's Day morning delivered bright Florida rays pouring through my hotel pane. The irony struck as I laid Harrison's illicit past across the desk like cards in a fatal match. Each paper narrated the same: courtship, control, monetary ruin. I called Emma's line at precisely 8:15 a.m., aware she'd be up, but Harrison might yet shower. She picked up on the second tone, her voice lively with the unique delight of a bride 4 weeks from her event. Morning, Dad. Sleep soundly, wasn't supper extraordinary? The cheer in her words rendered what I must do even harsher. Emma, I must share something vital. Are you seated? I'm prepping for the office. But what's amiss? You sound grave. I clutched Rachel Monroe's legal submission in my spare hand, gaining resolve from another parent's thwarted bid to rescue his child, Emma. Harrison sought $75,000 from me for the wedding. You claimed he was wealthy. Quiet extended over the connection like a strain. You're fabricating. Harrison would have informed me. Her voice splintered with doubt. Dear, he stated his resources were tied, and he required funds for the site. He swore me to silence. That's absurd. Harrison displays his trade ledgers constantly. He holds over $3 million. He faces a fraud charge. Dear, I possess the records here. Chicago County, docket CV 2025-8912. He pilfered from a woman named Rachel Monroe. I detected motion behind, Harrison's voice querying the issue. Emma's breaths quickened and shallowed. You're inventing this because you can't embrace my maturity. You resent that I no longer require you. Emma, please examine the proof. There are others. Sophia Carter, Julia Walker. He's repeated this. The device switched holders suddenly. Harrison's polished tone supplanted my daughter's sobs. Mr. Ellis, I grasp your worry, but these claims are utterly baseless. I was exonerated in Chicago. The matter lingers. Harrison, I hold the latest submissions. You possess obsolete data from bitter ex-associates. Emma knows my financial reality. In the distance, I heard my daughter weeping. Harrison's tone softened. More cunning. Darling, your father aims to wreck our joy. Some guardians can't release. Let me speak to Emma. My voice emerged sterner than planned. She's too distressed now. These false charges have wounded her deeply. Emma's voice pierced, sharp with agony and fury. How could you inflict this on me? How could you falsify about Harrison merely to spoil my wedding? I'm not falsifying. There are images of him with other ladies, rings identical to yours. Enough! You can't accept I discovered someone who cherishes me as I am, not as you desire. I attempted once more, my voice fracturing. Emma, please review the proof before marrying him. I'm forwarding all to your inbox now. Don't attend my wedding. I mean it. You've opted for falsehoods over your daughter's bliss. The connection severed. I sat gazing at my phone display, the proof strewn like remnants of a bond 29 years built. Through the hotel glass, pairs strolled arm in arm to Mother's Day meals, ignorant of the conflict raging in Suite 503. The message I vowed to dispatch stayed unsent, my digit poised over the keys. Harrison had triumphed this bout, twisting my safeguard into harassment, my devotion into dominance. But fathers persist. 42 days had inched past since that Mother's Day call. 42 days of roaming my Philadelphia home like a phantom in his own domain. The proof binders rested untouched on my dining surface, their covers now stained from drink marks and the damp exhalations of my wakeful nights. Each dawn started identically, scanning my phone for absent texts, fixating on Emma's profile until my vision blurred. The heap of incomplete notes on my workspace had thickened, regret efforts commencing with, Dear Emma, concluding with bald sheets in my bin. Madeline's image oversaw from the shelf as I extracted Harrison's legal papers for the 100th occasion. Perhaps I'd rushed, overly distrustful. The web can mislead. Right, images altered, records misconstrued. Maybe I'm overly wary. She's an adult, I whispered to the bare space. My neighbors began leaving fretful messages. Mrs. Anderson downstairs remarked I appeared slender. The delivery person inquired if I traveled, spotting the amassed post. Even my physician's staff rang about a forgotten visit I couldn't recollect booking. But today varied. Today was April 19th, and tomorrow my daughter would wed Harrison Kingsley with or sans my approval. I raised Madeline's silver frame, outlining her grin with my thumb. Madeline, what would you choose? Her soft eyes appeared to murmur what I required. At times, love entails release. Perhaps the legal files were contrived. Perhaps those women fabricated. Perhaps Harrison genuinely cherished Emma, and my envy had clouded my discernment. After all, what father readily yields his daughter to another? Perhaps the online reports are mere defamation, I muttered, finally sealing the proof binders. By midday, I'd resolved I would join the wedding, extend my approval, and strive to mend what my allegations had fractured. The lavish gem shop on Market Street greeted me like a familiar ally. I'd acquired Madeline's betrothal band there 31 years past. The nuptial present I chose cost more than many vehicles, an antique necklace with gems that seized light like trapped constellations. The clerk encased it in cream fabric with a note that read simply, "For my daughter on her special day. All my affection. Dad." At the airport, I sat with the offering balanced on my knees, practicing the remorse speech I'd committed to memory en route to Miami. I would convey to Emma I'd erred, that Harrison appeared decent, that I solely desired her contentment. The aircraft ascended into deepening twilight, bearing me toward what I hoped was mending rather than closure. Below, Philadelphia's illuminations waned like fading coals, and I shut my eyes, picturing tomorrow's event as a fresh dawn instead of dusk. Perhaps fathers could master trusting their daughters' selections, even when those selections alarmed them. The Grand Hyatt Miami loomed ahead like a tiered confection of stone and glass, its front adorned in graceful streamers proclaiming the Ellis Kingsley festivity. I alighted from the taxi, gripping Emma's gift, my pulse pounding against my chest as I straightened my top gray suit, the one I'd worn to escort her at her university commencement. Wedding attendees streamed through the entry in flows of satin and chuckles, their voices blending with the soft tones of a chamber ensemble tuning indoors. I spotted some known faces, Emma's dorm mate from school, my sibling Tom from Detroit, acquaintances from our former residence in Newark. Then I beheld it. My own likeness gazed back from a decorative stand by the doors, enlarged to banner scale in crisp monochrome. Below my image, refined script detailed words that struck like bodily hits. Access denied. Griffin Ellis per the bride and groom's directive. The nuptial offering slipped from my abruptly limp fingers. Fellow guests slowed, perusing the notice with awkward interest before rushing onward. A handful cast me compassionate looks, identifying the man in the photo standing rigid on the walk. "Pardon, sir, but you're not anticipated here." A guard appeared beside me, his manner expert yet not cruel. His badge read Ramirez. Maybe he had daughters as well. "This is my daughter marrying." The phrases emerged choked, scarcely audible over the hotel's background hum. Ramirez fidgeted uneasily, his palm lightly on my arm. "I'm truly sorry, but instructions are explicit." The pair was very clear on this setup. Through the transparent doors, I viewed the hall prepped, ivory blooms tumbling from crystal holders, settings with porcelain likely pricier than my lease. My $75,000 in action, crafting splendor I was barred from seeing. Other invitees persisted around us like currents past rocks, their talks dropping to hushes as they bypassed the image of the exiled father. Some appeared truly stunned. These were folks who'd known me ages, who joined Emma's celebrations and milestones. I positioned the necklace box gently by my own photo, the cream wrap vivid against the hotel's sleek stone. The jewels within would gleam beautifully on Emma's neck when she opted to unwrap it. Now I comprehend. Harrison. Now I grasp it all. Ramirez retreated a bit, perhaps detecting peril in my tone, but anger had faded. Anger was insufficient for my sensation. This wasn't mere dismissal. It was engineered shame crafted to erode every fragment of honor I might retain from our tie. Harrison hadn't merely claimed Emma. He'd ensured I'd be openly labeled as the parent too poisonous for his child's wedding. The image would guarantee everyone, kin, comrades, outsiders, knew how utterly I'd been expelled. I adjusted my tie and inclined to Ramirez. "Could you summon a cab? Please, I must reach the Central Wells Fargo before shut." The guard seemed eased. "Certainly, sir." Immediately. As I awaited the ride, I took a final glance at my own face, staring from that stand. The man there still thought his daughter might pardon him, might select blood over a stranger's sway. That man had been naive, but he'd wizened now. The cab left me at Wells Fargo's Central Miami office at exactly 5:30 p.m., the evening sun drawing extended shades over the structure's solid front. Inside. The weekend minimal staff proceeded with the relaxed pace of those tallying minutes to end. I neared the service counter with the same systematic poise I'd used to seal multi-million property agreements. The youthful clerk, her tag read Megan, glanced up from her monitor with trained courtesy. "Good afternoon. How may I assist today?" I set my license and account details on her gleaming counter with careful accuracy. "I need to halt a check right away." Megan's digits danced over her keys. "Accessing my records." "Surely, sir. Can you supply the check digit and sum check digit 3019, 75,000 payable to Harrison Kingsley?" I enunciated the surname slowly, observing her input each character. "Sir, if the check's already tendered, this might cause issues for the payee." Her voice bore the prudent note of one familiar with irate partners and kin clashes. I held her gaze steadily. That's precisely my intent. Insight flashed across her traits. She'd encountered this before. Deceived allies, unfaithful mates, family rifts ending in monetary combat. She retrieved the formal halt forms without further comment. "There's a $40 charge, and the stop activates instantly in our network. Any efforts to redeem or lodge this check will fail." "Excellent." I endorsed each sheet with the same precise mark I'd applied to Harrison's initial check. The irony evident. "The halt is active now. Mr. Ellis, here's your reference and slip." Megan passed the documents with the proficiency of one who knew fiscal reprisal demanded proper records. I creased the slip neatly and slotted it in my wallet beside Emma's university commencement snapshot. Somewhere in the city. Harrison was likely finalizing event particulars, assured his providers would receive payment, that his intricate ruse would end triumphantly. By then, the rite had probably started. Emma would advance the path in whatever attire Harrison had persuaded her to acquire, encircled by attendees who'd viewed my likeness on that degrading banner. The ensemble would perform, the lens capturing instances of glee and festivity. But soon, when servers sought settlement and decorators desired closure, Harrison would learn his chief source had vanished. The man who'd earned by manipulating others' wealth was poised to experience the reversal. "Will there be more today?" Mr. Ellis, Megan queried. "No, thanks. You've been immensely aiding." I exited the branch into the warm Florida dusk, reference in pocket like a primed tool. Behind me, the digital networks updated, labeling check 3019 invalid, ready to disgrace Harrison before each provider and attendee at his pilfered event. The cab journey back to the terminal passed in content quiet. Sometimes optimal reprisal was merely withdrawing the base from beneath another's deceptions. 3 hours had transpired since I departed Wells Fargo, and across Miami, my daughter was likely swaying her initial dance as Mrs. Harrison Kingsley. I sat in my hotel chamber, viewing the urban gleams sparkle like strewn jewels, my reference folded tidily in my wallet like a charged firearm. The Grand Hyatt's hall would glow with soft lights now, the chamber group rendering a classic waltz, while Emma glided over the stone floor in whatever gown Harrison had urged her to purchase. The notion should have saddened me. Instead, I sensed only icy fulfillment. My phone hummed, a message from my sibling Tom. Lovely write. Wish you'd been present. Then another hum. Transaction system glitchy. Quite odd. This from an unknown, likely a provider. The third prompted my smile. Harrison appears ghostly. At the Grand Hyatt, Harrison would near the meal director on supper, producing the platinum visa he'd flourished so theatrically at our ill-fated eatery meet. The same card that would now reject with the stark digital tone of inadequate balance. Mr. Kingsley, we require prompt payment prior to mains. The meal director's tone would be skilled yet resolute. I'd handled sufficient event providers to know the protocol. Harrison would retry, likely faulting tech woes, requesting manual handling. When that flopped, he'd extract reserves, each overloaded from past ploys, each denial resounding through the hall like blasts. There must be an error. This can't be, he'd assert, perspiration forming on his brow despite the hall's precise temperature. By then, the performers would cease. Their compensation approval also refused. The lens artist would stow costly gear, regretting that agreements mandated instant resolution. Even the decorator would softly withdraw arrangements, guarding their outlay from a patron unable to settle. Harrison, what's occurring? Why are all departing? Emma's voice would break with bewilderment and rising alarm. Other attendees would note the turmoil. Affluent kin and comrades observing appalled as providers methodically unraveled the graceful event they'd admired. Online shares would pivot from praise images to uneasy records of a highly visible fiscal collapse. Your father, he caused this. He destroyed our wedding. Harrison's voice would elevate over the hum of puzzled guests, his trained allure finally splintering under strain. But I wasn't present to see his shame directly. I was 3,000 miles distant, room delivery brew cooling on my stand, watching my phone illuminate with ever-frantic rings from a digit I knew as Harrison's. Ring after ring after ring, each more urgent. I permitted them all to voicemail. 84 missed rings. I tallied twice, observing the alert grow with each frantic try. Harrison's digit led the tally, but now Emma's image surfaced amid his attempts, my daughter's radiant grin flashing like a signal of distress. The recordings narrated the tale I'd engineered, but couldn't observe firsthand. Harrison's opening message at 8:15 p.m. still bore hints of his rehearsed poise. Mr. Ellis, appears a banking tech problem. If you could return the call. By message 20, the facade slipped. Sir, I require you to reach the bank now. This is critically pressing. Message 45 showed frenzy. Please, Mr. Ellis, the event is collapsing. Some awful blunder occurred. I served myself a whiskey from the mini-stock and settled in the leather seat by the pane. Boston's lights glittered below, while afar, Harrison's built realm crumbled live, The recordings intensified in desperation. Ambient sounds disclosed the mayhem. Providers disputing, guests muttering, the empty resonance of a hall stripped of enchantment. Harrison's tone broke as he implored, menaced, and ultimately admitted, "I know what you believe transpired, but I can clarify all. The funds, yes, I needed aid, but I planned repayment. Please, your daughter weeps." Message 75 altered all. Rather than Harrison's wild pleas, I heard Emma's voice, shattered and diminutive. "Dad, please return." Harrison admitted everything. I placed my whiskey and stared at the device. This was the instant I'd awaited. But her sobs tightened my chest with unforeseen ache. The 85th ring arrived at 10:43 p.m. This time I responded, "Dad." Emma's voice was scarcely a breath. "Everything. What precisely did he disclose about the funds, his obligations, the other ladies?" Each term emerged like shards. "You were accurate on all, the suits, the fabrications, everything." Through the line, I heard Harrison distant, his pitch elevated and hopeless. "She misunderstands. I cherish her. The funds irrelevant. I'll restore. I'll fly to Miami," I stated warily. "But I won't cover anything. After all that, the image, the shame, no more checks from me." "Understood. Dad, just please arrive. I need you. Gather your items. Dear, we'll sort the remainder tomorrow." After disconnecting, I reserved the overnight flight to Florida. Outside my pain, Boston slumbered calmly, unaware that 3,000 miles off, equity had at last reached Harrison Kingsley. Sometimes finest reprisal was merely permitting someone to expose their genuine essence when the weight grew unbearable. 4 months later, autumn warmth glimmered off Philadelphia's paths as I heard known steps ascending to my apartment. Through the viewer, I saw Emma in the corridor with 2 battered cases, her features drawn yet resolute, resembling my daughter more than in over a year. I opened before she rapped. "Dad, pardon me. You were correct on everything." The phrases spilled as she fell into my embrace, akin to when she was 8 and tumbled from her cycle. "Dear, you're my child. We'll navigate this jointly." I led her to the sofa, the same leather where this ordeal started with that February video. How altered all apart now. The proof binders were stored, submitted to authorities, but Madeline's image still guarded from the shelf. He seized nearly all, my residence, reserves, even my grandma's gems. Emma's voice trembled with weariness and disgrace. After the event disintegrated, he grew frantic, began faking my mark, tapping accounts I unaware he'd accessed. The screen hummed behind. I'd viewed the nightly broadcast routinely, abruptly. Harrison's likeness filled it. Not the sleek profile from his phony Enterprise pages. This was an arrest photo. His locks messy, his trained grin swapped for the vacant glare of one whose plots had caught up. "Harrison Kingsley detained for major fraud," the host declared evenly. "National probes state he aimed at affluent kin via romantic bonds, taking over $3 million from sufferers across states." Emma glanced at the display. "Then me. They contacted yesterday. I'm not his sole sufferer, am I? Rachel Monroe, Sophia Carter, Julia Walker. I listed the ladies whose images I'd output in that Miami hotel. You weren't first, but you'll be last." The broadcast proceeded with specifics validating my every hunch on Harrison. Various personas, faked trade files, a routine of targeting thriving women through romance apps, then exhaustively depleting their assets over 9-month spans. Harrison will face this. Equity will restore, I said, drawing my daughter nearer. The national probe advanced rapidly once Harrison's fragile structure fell. My proof from that restless February night offered the starting guide, but Harrison's post-event frenzy prompted bolder errors. When you've constructed your existence on deceptions, truth emerges unexpectedly. I gave testimony at the panel last week. Emma said softly. He's facing 20 to 25 years. Outside, Philadelphia buzzed with its known evening beat. Regular kin concluding suppers, aiding young with studies, living plain, truthful lives I'd envied in my bleakest times. What now? Emma asked. I surveyed the apartment that had protected me through my life's worst trial, then at my daughter, matured, wiser, marked, yet unbroken. Now we reconstruct together. Madeline's image seemed to beam approval from the shelf. Sometimes shielding loved ones means tough choices, even if they despise you temporarily. But devotion lasts, truth triumphs, and equity, when it arrives, savors sweeter than any vengeance. If you found this story captivating, share your impressions in the comments below. What would you have done in Griffin's shoes? Let us know your thoughts and spark a conversation with fellow viewers. Feel free to ask questions about the plot, characters, or even similar real-life experiences. We love hearing from you, and your queries help us dive deeper in future discussions. By interacting like this, you become part of our community, making the channel even more engaging for everyone. For the next thrilling tale, simply click the box on the left. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to your comments.